This struggling rancher bought a quiet girl for labor, but something was eerily off with her. The wind rolled low across the valley, dragging dust like a tired sigh. It caught on fence posts, in the cracks of dry lips, in the folds of torn sleeves. Even the horses didn't flick their tails anymore. They just stood, ribs poking like bones through canvas. Ransom Dyer squinted into the sun. He hadn't blinked in what felt like hours. The Dry Cactus Trading Post looked like it might fall sideways if someone spat hard enough. One warped wall, shuttered windows, a dented pot outside filled with sand instead of flowers. It wasn't the kind of place a decent man stopped at unless he was desperate, and Ransom Dyer wasn't sure if he was a decent man anymore. His boots thudded against the porch as he climbed the creaking steps. Inside, the air smelled of tobacco spit and old varnish. There were shelves with stale biscuits, rusted horseshoes, a line of pewter cups that hadn't been cleaned since Grant was president. At the counter stood a man with too many teeth. "Elwood March." The man grinned, gold glinting in his molars. "I figured you'd show." Ransom didn't smile. "You said there was labor." March's fingers tapped a strange rhythm on the countertop. The nails were stained. The skin looked too pink, like he washed his hands too often, or not at all. "Back room," he said. The hinges screamed. Behind the swinging door was a space not meant for sunlight. A single lantern flickered. The floor was pocked with old blood or oil, or both, and sitting against the far wall was a girl, maybe 12, maybe younger, skin the color of dark cinnamon, head shaved close, bare feet blistered. She wore a canvas dress with one sleeve missing, and she clutched a metal spoon like it was a weapon. She didn't look up. "That one's quiet," March said. "Doesn't eat much. Works till she drops. Doesn't even cry." "What's her name?" March shrugged. "Does it matter?" Ransom stepped closer. The girl slowly raised her head. Her eyes were storm-colored, gray and black and strange. She looked at him like she already knew how he was going to die. "How much?" Ransom asked. March leaned on the doorframe. $30, or 2 mules and a saddle. Ransom swallowed. $30 was more than he had, but he had a mule, and a saddle, and a half-broken cart full of guilt he hadn't figured out how to bury yet. "Done," he said. 3 hours later, they were riding back through the canyon. Ransom on the lone horse, the girl curled in the back of the cart. Silent. She hadn't said a word. She hadn't asked why. She just watched the sky as if it were keeping secrets. At camp, he handed her jerky. She didn't eat. He poured water. She didn't drink. Instead, she bent down beside the fire pit, pressed her fingers into the dust, and began to draw. It was a horse, but not like a child would draw. This one was exact, perfect, head bowed, muscles detailed. Even the hooves showed cracks from age. She drew it like she'd seen it die once. Ransom stared. "What's your name?" She didn't answer. He crouched beside her, staring at the horse sketched in dirt. "That's real fine work. You draw often?" She paused. Then, barely above a whisper, "Only when I'm alone." Ransom didn't know what to say to that. So he just said, "You're safe now." She looked at him. Something behind her eyes flickered, and for the first time, she nodded. The next morning, at the ranch, if it could still be called that, the fences were rotted. The barn leaned like an old drunk. The fields were dust. The well ran low. Ransom didn't have a wife. Not anymore. Didn't have children. Never did. But now he had a girl who didn't speak, and drew ghosts in the dirt. He pointed to the tool shed. "That's where the buckets are. You can fetch water, but don't push too hard. You're not here to break." She said nothing. But she moved, quiet as wind, did as told, hauled a full pail like she weighed twice as much. Later, while he was mending the barn roof, he glanced down and saw her again, drawing. This time, it was a house, his house. Every plank, every broken shutter, every chicken he didn't even know was still alive. It was drawn with perfect scale, from a viewpoint 20 feet in the air. He blinked, climbed down. "How'd you—" She looked up, her face unreadable. "Sometimes I see things," she said. "From up there." She pointed to the sky. 3 days passed. He began calling her Dusty. She didn't protest. He gave her a clean blanket. She kept sleeping on the floor. He tried to get her to smile. She only ever blinked. Once, he built her a stool to draw on. She still sat in the dirt. At night, he'd hear her whispering in her sleep. Words he didn't know. Sounded like rivers, or like thunder trying not to wake the earth. One evening, she held out a drawing. A man on a horse, coat blowing backward. Wide hat, face in shadow. "Who's this?" he asked. She stared hard. "He's coming." 2 weeks later, a rider came. Lean man, long coat, scar up his neck like a rope burn. Wore iron spurs but didn't make a sound. His horse was dust-colored, like it crawled out of an old grave. "You Ransom Dyer?" the man asked. Ransom nodded. The man's voice was quiet. "You bought a girl." "I did. That girl don't belong to you." Ransom felt his hand drift toward the shotgun on the porch rail. "I paid for her legal." "Legal don't mean anything when the devil signs the contract." The man tipped his hat. "She draws things," he said. "Don't let her draw you." Then he turned and rode off, dust curling behind him. That night, Dusty didn't sleep. She sat outside, barefoot, eyes scanning the sky. "Who was he?" Ransom asked. She said nothing for a while. Then finally, "His name is Harley Vex. He killed my brother. Now he's looking for me." Ransom's throat went dry. "Why?" Dusty looked down, then whispered, "Because I remember where the bones are buried." Ransom Dyer didn't sleep that night. The shotgun stayed across his knees as he rocked on the porch, eyes scanning the black beyond the fields. Somewhere, an owl called. Somewhere further, a coyote screamed. Inside the house, Dusty was curled on a straw mattress she'd made for her. Beneath the window, she hadn't drawn anything today. She hadn't spoken since the name Harley Vex passed her lips. That name scratched something deep in Ransom's gut. He didn't know why. By morning, the wind had turned. Ransom hitched the mule cart before sunrise. "Get in," he told her. She blinked. "Where are we going?" "To someone who knows how to read signs like you." Dusty didn't argue, just pulled herself into the cart, legs tucked, hands folded like a prayer. They rode west, up into the high brush. The trail narrowed, thinned, then disappeared altogether. Ransom had to walk the horse himself, leading them through thorn and shale. At noon, they reached a crooked shack half sunk into the hillside. Bones dangled from the eaves. Bird skulls, coyote teeth, a sun-bleached deer spine. And on the porch sat Elder Bess. She was older than wind, skin the color of the canyon's heart, eyes white as milk, long braids laced with silver and feathers. She didn't blink, just tilted her face when she heard the horse approach. "You brought me a ghost," she said. Ransom dismounted. "She's not a ghost." Elder Bess smiled with no teeth. "Aren't we all?" Inside the shack, the walls were covered in charcoal drawings. Strange circles, shadow horses, eyes, hundreds of eyes. Dusty stepped inside like she'd been here before. Elder Bess didn't ask her name, didn't ask why she was there. She simply said, "Draw," and Dusty obeyed. Knee in the dirt, she dragged a stick through the ash floor. Her strokes were faster this time, more urgent. A spiral, a horse, a tree, then a skull beneath its roots. Elder Bess reached out a wrinkled hand and placed it on the drawing. "This one remembers," she murmured. "This one's marked." Ransom frowned. "What does that mean?" Bess turned to him. Her milky eyes didn't see, but her voice did. "She was born in a place where cruelty was worshipped. A house of velvet lies. They cut her brother's throat and made her watch." Ransom felt cold. "And when they buried him beneath the orchard, they made her dig." Dusty didn't speak. She just kept drawing. Down the mountain, Ransom and Dusty rode in silence. Near the bottom of the trail, she finally said, "I dream in smells." He blinked. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, serious. "The past. It's not pictures, it's smells. Blood on wood, peach rot, cheap cologne. I know when death is near because I smell it first." That night, the drawing changed. Ransom couldn't sleep again. He found Dusty outside, crouched in the barn's corner. She had drawn something new. It was a map, not like one you'd find in a saloon, not trails and roads. It was the ranch, his, drawn from below, like an X-ray. The fields, the barn, and something else, under the orchard behind the house. 4 dark shapes. "Skulls, is this?" he started. She nodded. "They're still there." The peach trees grew fat from the rot. Ransom didn't wait. At dawn, he was out back with a shovel. Dusty stood barefoot, watching. He dug for hours, and finally hit something. A boot, then bone, then another, and another. By sunset, 4 full skeletons lay uncovered beneath the old orchard. Each had rope marks on their necks. One still wore a badge. A star, cracked in half. Ransom sat back, breathless. Dusty whispered, "Those men tried to stop it." Hidden beneath the 4th skull was a metal tin. Inside, half-burned papers, a photograph of a boy and girl, A seal. Property of the Pinkerton Detective Agency. Ransom's hand trembled. He turned the photo over, scrawled in pencil, Elijah plus Willa May, 1877. He looked up at her. Willa May? Dusty blinked. My name, she said softly. Before the pain. 3 nights later, a stranger came again. The moon was bone white. Ransom was oiling the shotgun when he heard a whistle. Not from the wind. A slow, lazy melody. Too sweet. Too practiced. He stepped out, gun raised. Harley Vex stood at the fence line. Same coat. Same empty smile. You've been digging, Vex said. Ransom said nothing. She remembers too much. Vex continued. She's not a girl. She's a key. And keys belong to locks, not cowards who pretend to be fathers. Ransom's thumb clicked the hammer. You step 1 inch closer, he growled, and I'll show you what mercy looks like dead. But Vex only smiled wider, then vanished into the dark. The next week tested everything. The well ran dry. A horse limped lame. A letter arrived, unsigned, with a single word, return. Willa May didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply kept drawing. One morning, Ransom found a new image scratched into the barn wall. It showed him, lying in the dirt, shot, and a horse running away, riderless. He stared at her. You see this happening? She looked away. I'm not trying to make it happen, she whispered, but I think someone else is. They left at dawn. Ransom packed a saddlebag with dried meat, a coil of rope, and the photograph from the tin. Willa May folded the drawings she'd etched on old barn paper. Maps, bones, eyes. They didn't speak much, but something hung in the air between them. A quiet pact. They weren't riding to the past. They were riding into it. Knives first. The trail turned south, through the ghost hills of Greystone County, where even the trees leaned wrong, as if ashamed of what they'd seen. Nobody farmed here anymore. Too many whispers, too many vanishings, but Willa knew the way. Ransom followed her lead without question. She stopped once, in a clearing, and pointed. There, she said. The well's gone, but it used to be in the middle. That's where Elijah screamed. Ransom said nothing. They pressed on. 2 days later, they reached a white gate, half buried in wild vines. Beyond it, nestled among rotted peach trees, was a house made of pale stone and blue velvet curtains. Time hadn't claimed it. Not fully. The glass windows were cracked but intact. The roof sagged, but the chimney still stood. A sign on the post read, The Miss Kinwright School for Gifted Young Ladies, closed indefinitely, 1881. Willa's face changed. She didn't cry, but her fingers curled into fists so tight. Her nails cut skin. Ransom touched her shoulder. You don't have to go in. I do, she whispered. Inside the house, the air was perfume and mold. Long rugs lined the floors, blue, faded. Paintings of young girls in stiff gowns stared from the walls, and in the grand parlor, a piano, untouched, except for a single key, broken. I was whipped for hitting that note wrong, Willa said flatly. She walked to the back hall, pressed her palm against the wallpaper, then tore it away. Behind it, burned into the wood, was a word, obey. Upstairs in the west wing they found it, a locked door behind a false panel. Ransom kicked it open. Inside were shelves, not of books, but of diaries, hundreds of them, labeled with dates and names, 1 per child, each no longer than a year. Willa ran her fingers across the spines. Elijah's is here, she said. Mine burned. They made me burn it myself. Ransom picked up one, opened it. Each entry, just a few words. March 1st, cold meat again. Miss said not to bleed on the sheets. March 14th, girl named Hattie vanished. Nobody cried. April 3rd, Miss Kinwright kissed me goodnight. Her mouth smelled like wine and rot. Ransom shut the book. His hands were shaking. In the basement was a hidden chamber. Walls red velvet, a chair with straps, a box of perfumes and gold scissors. Willa wouldn't enter. Ransom did. He found a photo album. Inside were photographs of children, bound, painted, posed. Some smiled, some didn't. On the last page, a contract, stamped with the Pinkerton seal. Sold signatures, some forged, some not. And in one corner, a signature, Elwood March. That night, they camped nearby. Ransom sat by the fire, jaw tight. Willa drew in the dirt again. But this time, no horses. Just a flame, and a woman burning inside it. Ransom stared. That's Miss Kinwright? Willa nodded. She isn't dead, but she will be. They left the house in silence. Willa didn't look back. Ransom burned one diary, Hattie's, and left the others on the porch, with a sign that read, "Remember us." When they returned to the ranch, things felt colder. The barn was open, chickens scattered. Something had been here. In the house, on the wall, was a message. "You dig too deep." Underneath it, a child's dress pinned to the wall with a knife. It wasn't Willa's, but she looked at it like it belonged to someone she once loved. Harley Vex came back, this time not alone. 3 riders, faces wrapped in bandanas, guns holstered loose. They waited by the well. Ransom stepped outside, rifle in hand. "You want her?" Vex nodded. "She's not a child. She's a door. And what's behind her drawings could burn towns." Willa stepped forward. "I'll go," she said. Ransom froze. "No." She looked at him. Eyes gentle. "If I don't, you die." Vex smiled. Smart girl, but she added one more thing. "Let me say goodbye." Vex hesitated, then waved her off. 5 minutes. Willa pulled Ransom inside. "I need to draw," she whispered. "Willa." "No time." She knelt, drew a circle, then another. "Symbols. Salt," she said. "Give me salt." He ran to the kitchen, brought a tin. She poured it around the drawing, then stood. "They think I'm a key," she said. "But they don't know. I'm the lock, too." Outside, Vex whistled. Willa stepped toward the door, turned back. "You were the only one who didn't touch me with fire," she whispered. Then she opened the door and dropped the match. The circle burst in flame, salt cracked, the wind howled, and from beneath the house, a sound. Not human. The 3 riders screamed. One dropped. His skin bubbled. Vex tried to run, but the flames twisted, curved, chased. Willa didn't move. She stood still in the fire, eyes glowing, arms open, a horse drawn in flame behind her. Then silence. The fire burned for 3 days, but it wasn't like any fire Ransom had ever seen. It didn't eat the house. It peeled it, layer by layer. The blue velvet turned to mist. The wood walls sagged like breath, and the barn, though untouched by flame, now smelled of smoke and something older. Ash drifted through the air like snow, but it never landed on Willa's drawings. Vex and his men, gone. Not dead, not escaped, just gone. Nothing left but 4 melted horseshoes and a trail of hoofprints that ended in the middle of the orchard. No bodies, no blood, just silence. Ransom sat on the porch, shotgun still across his lap, watching the wind move like it had somewhere to be. Willa lay curled in a blanket inside. She hadn't woken since the flames. On the 5th morning, she stirred. She opened her eyes, slowly, like remembering how. Her voice was hoarse. Did it work? Ransom didn't know how to answer, but he nodded. Willa blinked. "Good. That means he's sealed again." Ransom sat beside her. "I thought you were a girl," he whispered. "Just a girl. I was," she said. Then I remembered. Remembered what? She looked up at him, eyes full of every storm the sky forgot. That I was born during a blood moon, and some men tried to cut the meaning out of me before I could speak it. 2 days later, a rider came. This one wore a badge. Sheriff Horace Bell. Thick mustache, hat too small. Known for being too slow with law and too quick with a bottle. He stepped off his horse like it offended him. "Got a report," he said. "Said a house up north burned down in a perfect circle. Said the trees outside whistled." Ransom nodded. "It happened. Any bodies?" "No." "Any witnesses?" He looked inside. Willa sat at the table, drawing again. "No," Ransom said. "Just me." The sheriff frowned. "You sure?" "I am." Bell studied him a moment longer, then muttered, "World's gone strange since Lincoln died," and rode off. Willa didn't talk much in the weeks after, but she drew. This time, not bones, not ghosts. She drew people. Women laughing, boys with kites, a baby curled against a woman's chest. "Who are they?" Ransom asked. "Ones who never got to live," she said. "Are you giving them life now?" She nodded. "It's the only way they'll be remembered." Strangers began to come, one by one, not lawmen, not criminals, mothers, widows, daughters, women who'd heard stories in whispers about a place where the silence screamed too long. They arrived with satchels and questions. Ransom didn't speak much. He just showed them the orchard, showed them the diaries, preserved now in a crate beneath the house. Willa would give them each a drawing of the daughter they lost, the sister, the self they forgot. Some wept, some smiled, some just sat in the dirt and thanked it. One day, a woman came named Clara. She was a school teacher from New Mexico. Eyes sharp, voice soft, hands always moving. She sat beside Willa for 3 days, didn't ask her to speak, didn't ask her to draw. On the 4th morning, she gave her a book. Blank pages. "I heard you burned the last one they gave you," Clara said. "So I brought you a new one. No rules this time." Willa held it like a live bird, then slowly smiled. Ransom carved a symbol into the porch post, the first one Willa ever drew in the dirt. The spiral, the horse, the eye, and beneath it, "We remember." He didn't turn the ranch into a school, didn't build a statue, didn't write a book. He just kept the place open, made space for quiet, let the land breathe. 1 year later, Willa stood taller now, 13, hair grown long and braided. Eyes still storm-colored, but calmer. She didn't draw in the dirt much anymore. Now she painted. With color, her first painting? A man sitting on a porch, a shotgun on his lap, a girl beside him smiling. She titled it, "The Day I Was Bought," then freed. Autumn came soft to the valley. Golden leaves fell slow. The wind smelled like smoke and cinnamon. Willa started wearing a scarf Clara sent from New Mexico. Bright red, like a fire that refused to die. Ransom kept chopping wood, kept fixing the fence even though no cattle roamed it, kept pretending he hadn't seen what he saw in that red room. But guilt don't rot like wood. It burrows, deep and quiet. A letter came in an unmarked envelope, sealed with wax. Inside, a folded page. "You remember what you did in Dodge, don't you, Ransom? You think taking in a girl balances the scale? There's a grave near the old sawmill. You dug it. Now dig it again. A friend of the forgotten." He read it once, then burned it. But fire doesn't destroy memory. It feeds it. Ransom rode out at dawn. Didn't tell Willa, didn't take the rifle. Just a shovel, and a bottle of whiskey he hadn't touched in 4 years. The sawmill was half-eaten by vines. The grave he found easily. A flat stone, no name. Just a horseshoe etched into it. He started digging. By midday, he hit wood. A small box, not a coffin. Inside, a child's shoe, a rusted harmonica, a letter, yellowed and faded. He unfolded it. "Mr. Dyer, you promised you'd get me out. You said wait by the back gate, but the gate never opened. And the man came back. His breath smelled like copper and wine, and the world went dark. If you find this, please don't forget my name. It was Eli, not Elijah, just Eli." Back at the ranch, Willa met him at the gate, saw his face, said nothing, but that night she gave him a new drawing. Not in dirt, on paper, with ink. It showed a boy playing harmonica under a peach tree, smiling, alive, and beside him a man with green eyes, crying. She didn't say, "It's you." She didn't have to. That night, Ransom dreamed of fire, but it didn't burn. It healed. He saw every child he failed, every time he looked away, every time he walked past a locked door. But they didn't scream at him. They just watched. And then, one by one, they nodded, until only Eli was left, and the boy whispered, "It's okay. You stayed." 3 months passed. Ransom began writing letters to other men who'd once looked away. Sheriffs, judges, preachers. He didn't accuse. He reminded. Every letter ended with the same words. "The house is gone, but the memory stays. You can either be part of the silence or part of the change." Some letters never got replies. Some got threats. But one, from a Judge Talbot, came with something else. A check, enough to rebuild the barn and plant a new orchard. The orchard ceremony. Willa stood beside Ransom as they placed the first sapling. Others gathered. Clara came. So did 2 women who'd lost sisters, and one man, eyes hollow, who confessed to being a buyer once. Willa gave him a single drawing. A horse, wounded but not broken, running into the sun. He collapsed to his knees and wept. No one stopped him. The quiet day after, it was Sunday, Ransom made biscuits, burnt them. Willa laughed. It was the first time she'd laughed out loud. Really laughed. He stared at her like she was a comet. "Don't get soft on me, Dyer," she teased. He shook his head. "No, just grateful." She looked at him, soft now. "Did you ever have a daughter?" He hesitated. Then, "No. Would you want one?" He swallowed. "Only if she looked like you." At the fence, that evening, Willa pinned a drawing to the post, a girl with her hand outstretched. Beside her, a man kneeling, not in pain, but in reverence. She titled it, "The Man Who Learned to Kneel." Winter rolled in quiet, the hills frosted at dawn, chickens clucked with frost on their combs, and smoke curled from the ranch chimney like a ribbon reaching home. The land slept, but the world started waking up. It began with whispers. They didn't call it Dyer's Ranch anymore. They called it the Drawback Place. Folks said if you stood in the orchard at sunset, you'd remember a name you thought you forgot, or one you never knew was yours. Some said it was haunted. Others said it was holy, but all agreed. Something powerful lived there, and she had eyes like a storm. Willa turned 14 that winter. She still didn't talk much to strangers, but her drawings traveled farther than she ever had. Someone hung one in a chapel in Kansas. A mother holding a daughter's ghost by the hand. Another sat in the lobby of a Denver courthouse. A girl with a burned mouth, pointing at a judge. Each piece unsigned. But people knew, and people came. One morning, a wagon arrived from the east. Inside, Reverend Malden Ditch. Suit too black, beard too white, voice like syrup left out in the sun. He didn't ask permission, just stepped onto the porch like he owned the story. "You harbor dangerous spirits," he said to Ransom. "I harbor a girl," Ransom said, "who's done more good than 10 of you. She plays God. She plays truth." Malden frowned. "I speak for the righteous." Willa stepped into the doorway behind Ransom and said one sentence, "Then why are your hands so red?" The Reverend blinked, then left, fast. The man with the cane, he came near Christmas, wore a long black coat, had a cane with a brass horse head, limped from an old injury. Or a curse. His name was Mr. Grin. He brought no horses, no food, no papers, just a box, and a smile. "I represent an old estate," he said. "The Kinwright Trust." Ransom's face hardened. "The estate's gone, perhaps, but its echo lives." He set the box down. "Inside are names, every child purchased, every man involved, every ledger not burned. You've drawn attention. Someone wants to make things right." Ransom raised a brow. "You?" Grin grinned. "Oh no, I'm just the delivery boy." Ransom opened the box alone. Inside, a ledger, cracked and brittle. A gold key, a final envelope with no seal. He read the note inside. "If you're reading this, she survived. We failed her. We failed them all. But someone held the line. The land remembers. Let her decide what happens next." Willa sat in the barn that night, painted a new piece. Not with pencil, with ash, charcoal, and dried blood. She painted a courtroom, but everyone inside wore masks. Some were crying. Some were silent. She titled it, "Judgment Without Names." Then she folded it and set it aflame. Ransom watched it burn. "Why burn that one?" Willa looked at him. "Some justice. Ain't for paper." They planted the last sapling that winter. Deep in the far corner of the orchard, Willa poured something strange into the soil. Ransom leaned over. "What's that?" She smiled softly. "Dust from the floor of the red room, mixed with paint and ash. I want it to grow new from what was rotten." The tree sprouted fast. By spring it bore white blossoms. No peaches, just petals. The woman with the scars. Her name was Liza. She came alone. Face burned on one side. One arm stiff. She had no money, no papers. Just a sketch. Half ripped. It showed her long ago. In a cage of velvet. Willa sat beside her in the orchard. Neither spoke. Until Liza whispered, "I didn't think anyone would remember me." Willa held her hand. "You remembered you," she said. "That's all it took." That spring, Willa drew something she wouldn't show anyone. Not even Ransom. She sealed it in a crate, marked it, to be opened when the house tries to return. Then she buried it beneath the tree with white blossoms. Late one evening, a boy arrived. Dark skin, braided hair, pale eyes. 12 maybe. He stood at the fence like he was trying not to shake. Ransom stepped out. "Need something, son?" The boy held up a folded paper. Willa stepped outside and stopped cold. The drawing showed her, as a baby, held in a man's arms, a woman beside him. Face blanked by a smudge. The boy whispered, "I think I might be your cousin." They let the boy stay the night. He gave no last name, only said his mother died crossing the southern canyons, and the only thing she left him was the drawing. Willa didn't ask questions, not yet. She just sat beside him by the fire, sharing roasted squash and goat cheese on burnt bread. He didn't eat much, but he stared at her, not with awe, but with something stranger, like recognition. Over the next few days, he followed Willa everywhere, watched her draw, helped water the trees. He said his name was Alden. He said he'd seen horses in dreams since he was 5. Not real horses, dust ones, with eyes like broken marbles. Willa just nodded. Some things didn't need explaining. Inside the box Mr. Grin had brought, Willa and Ransom finally found the name they feared. Elwood March, broker, transporter, final witness to the Kinwright inheritance. But under March's name, a symbol. Not a signature. It looked like a twisted spiral, a snake coiled around a single horse hoof. And beside it, a note in red ink. The one marked with the spiral will always return. If the girl lives, the bloodline must be broken. This is the pact. The circle of 4. Ransom swore under his breath. He'd thought the house was the monster, but the house was just the face. Something older had worn it. They tested it the old way, with ash and honey and a Comanche root blend Elder Bess had taught Ransom long ago. It didn't burn. It sparked. Your blood's got memory, Ransom whispered. Willa looked at the boy. He has it too. Alden looked away. I hear voices at night. They call me back. They say we didn't finish the door. It happened at dusk. A wagon, painted bone white, creaked into the valley, pulled by 2 mules so thin they looked like paper folded in half. Elwood March stepped out. Same teeth. New cane. He didn't smile this time. He just said, "You thought fire could cleanse history." Ransom raised his shotgun. "You're supposed to be dead." Was. Briefly, March stepped forward, and I came back, because the circle doesn't break, it bends. March laid out the deal. "Give us the boy. Alden. He's half the gate. Willa is the key, yes, but Alden is the lock now. Together they can reopen what we sealed. We failed last time. The binding was imperfect." Ransom stepped in front of them. "No." March tilted his head. "Do you even know what she really is?" Willa answered. "Yes, I'm what you made. And what you can't unmake." That night, the circle in the field, they drew it with salt. Willa, Alden, and Ransom, standing at 3 points. Inside the circle, the white tree blossomed, and around them, silence. Then came the wind. Then came the crows. Then came the voice, from beneath the roots. "The door opens with blood. The hinge was forged in screams. You cannot bury what was never born." Willa stepped forward. "I don't need to bury it," she said. "I need to name it." She shouted the names of every girl who vanished from the Kinwright house, every page from the diaries, every broken whisper. The wind grew violent. The earth shook. Then, silence. Willa knelt and drew one final spiral in the dirt. Inside it, she wrote, "We see you now." Elwood March tried to flee. Alden followed, cornered him behind the barn. No weapons, just fire in his fists. "You sold my mother," Alden said. March gasped. "She begged me to." Alden struck him once. Just once. March dropped, and didn't move again. That night, Willa sat by the white blossom tree with Alden beside her. The sky was quiet. Stars blinked like they didn't dare speak. He asked the question both had waited years to ask. Why us? Willa didn't answer right away. Then she picked up a stick, drew a spiral in the dirt. But this time, she drew roots beneath it. They tried to grow their evil on stolen land. She said softly, "They buried the truth so deep. They thought it would rot." She looked up, but it didn't rot. It grew, and we were born with its memory in our blood. Alden stared at the drawing. "So, we're not special?" Willa smiled faintly. "No, we're connected. That's all. Some people hear music in the wind. Some see numbers before they sleep. We feel pain that never got named." She pressed her palm to the dirt. "When a place remembers something loud enough, someone's born who can listen. That's us." Alden blinked. "And the drawings?" Willa looked at him. "That's not magic either. It's just what happens when you finally let ghosts speak. They weren't witches. They weren't angels. They were kids born on soil that screamed. And all they did was listen and draw what the rest of us buried."